Yeah, I think it's good. I think competition's great for everybody. Anytime you got competition at any position, whether it's the quarterback position or wherever it may be, I think that makes everybody better.
What do you see from him going into year 2?
I think consistency is the biggest thing. You know, we've had those conversations, myself and him, just being consistent, obviously being on the field. 15 games the last 2 years. He played 11 last year, did some really good things, but just looking for the consistency.
Right now he's working with Tom House down in Florida.
Who's that?
Tom House.
Okay.
I guess, what do you want this offseason to look like from him just in terms of building toward the regular season?
Yeah, I think, building on the fundamentals and obviously just continue to work on his passing, getting the completion percentage up will be big going forward for him.
When you look at the completion percentage, is that footwork? Is it playing the position? What is it for him?
Yeah, I think it's repetitions. I think it's you look at those things, just repetitions going over and over again is going to be big for him. The fundamental part of it, I think he has really quick feet. I've said that before, really quick feet, and I think it's just getting the repetitions with those guys to get that completion percentage up.
You got Lou in-house.
Yeah.
How much did your history going against him factor into you wanting to look into him?
A lot of the guys that I interviewed had a ton of respect for all those guys and the scheme that they ran. And so when I was going through that process, I was looking at schematically, what teams do, what has given, myself that I've been where I've been fits. And he's one of those guys that I got a lot of respect for. He's multiple in the back end, tight coverage, press man stuff, which, will be good for us, a good switch up for us. Excited, to have him on our staff. And with that being said, got a ton of respect for Gus and what, he did here the last couple of years, but excited to add Lou and the rest of the assistants.
Is it as simple as being, or to simplify, is it being hard to read from a defensive coordinator for a play caller?
Yeah, I think, he does a good job of disguising certain things from a coverage standpoint, from a back end standpoint, when and where and how he brings his pressures. If you look at his history, the past 6 years as D coordinator in Cincinnati, obviously 2 AFC Championships games, been to a Super Bowl. He's done a lot of really good things.
Shane, when looking at the possibility of taking a tight end early in the draft, how important is it for that player to be able to impact the run game as well as being a pass catcher if you're going to draft him that high?
Yeah, that's a good question. Depending on what route, we go, obviously to be multiple at that position, to be able to run block and pass catch is huge. But obviously being able to affect the game on third downs as a pass catcher at the tight end position is huge. So as we're looking through all positions, we'll take that into consideration.
So how do you feel about VR use in quarterback development? Some guys love it, some guys hate it.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. I think it's got a lot of benefits. We have it in our house. We use it. I think it's really good. It really is. It puts you in the game. I've done it, and it's pretty interesting. Obviously, you're not getting hit. You don't have pads on, but you can set your plays up and put your exact playbook on there versus certain defenses, and you can put yourself into the stadium. We're playing at Lucas Oil. It shows Lucas Oil Stadium, the guys you're going against. So to get those extra reps are huge. I think it's awesome.
Has AR used it?
Yeah, he used it. Yeah, it's great.
Shane, last year you guys had the smallest or one of the smallest staffs. What's your philosophy on how you construct your staffs, your assistants? How do you want to designate them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it depends, on what you're looking for from a staff standpoint. Obviously, you have your position coaches, and along that you have assistants with your young assistants. I think as long as you hire assistants and young assistants and you have a role for them, I think that's very beneficial. But if you're just going to hire guys and not have a role for them, I don't think that does you any good. So every person that we hire, we have a plan in place before we hire them and make sure their role is clearly defined.
You were an assistant before you became a head coach. How have you seen maybe the size of staffs grow? Is it a good thing that they continue to get bigger?
Yeah, it definitely has grown. I think some staffs are bigger than others. You go around and, talk to other people, what's the benefit of having bigger staffs? And I think it's really what you're looking for and what you need from that standpoint and what their role is going to be, like I said earlier. So I think that's the biggest thing is understanding what the role is. And, hey, we might need someone to do this, and we don't have another hand for that. We need to hire this person to do that. And I think that's kind of how staffs continue to grow and get bigger.
Shane, with Lou, there's the system, but then there's also getting more out of individual players. Do you think there's anything that he does that may be able to bring that out of some guys?
Yeah, I think, just, going through the interview process and being with him the last couple of weeks, he's got great energy about him. And I think he'll be able to really connect with our players and use our players' strengths. I really do. And I think he did a hell of a job with that in Cincinnati. And, going through and looking at his game plans, the biggest thing, that I've seen over the years, he's always got a plan to take their best player away. And so you go into these big games or wherever it may be, he'll have a plan, to win the game for that.
Forrest Buckner made some comments late in the season about how he felt like ego, complacency with some of the issues on defense. Chris talked about changing the roster over to maybe add more competition. I guess from your standpoint as a coaching staff, what can you do to address that? And was that at all a factor in deciding not a defensive coordinator?
Yeah, I think, when those things happen during the season, you get comments like that. Obviously, when that stuff does happen in the season, we nip it in the butt quickly. But I think, you look at your roster and you look at competition, and adding competition is great. But to flip the whole roster over and change the whole roster, that's not realistic. So we're working through that. We're looking at free agency and we're looking at the draft.
Shane, the assistants that Lou hired, how much of a role did you play in that? What strikes you about those guys?
Yeah, I think anytime you hire either whether, your offensive head coach, you hire a defensive guy, I think it's important that he has some guys that he feels comfortable with. So as we were going through that process, obviously he knew some of the guys we were bringing in. Obviously we interviewed them and just make sure it's the right fit. There's a lot of good coaches out there, but we want to make sure that we got the right fit so they can gel together and the chemistry is going to be good. Yeah, I think, that Baltimore defense still today, obviously, is one of the best in the league. They've been doing it at a high level, and he's had that back end playing at a high level for a long time. So to be able to get him in our situation that we got him in, kind of worked out great, better for us. So really excited to add him to our staff.
So you look back at last season, what areas do you think you excelled as a coach? Other areas you
Yeah, that's a good question. I think, we went through some adversity last year, and I've learned from that adversity. Obviously, the first year I was here, things went pretty good. Obviously, we didn't make the playoffs, but we hit a little bit of adversity. So you learn from that. So when those situations come up, if they ever do come up again, you're ready for those. But again, just being in that leadership role and being in those team meetings and being the leader of the football team and having a message every single week, I think I continue to grow in that area too.
There was a lot of conversation about culture throughout this past season. How are you looking to bolster that within your players through free agency, the draft, and this offseason?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think culture is about winning. You know what I mean? I think it comes down to winning a lot, but obviously you got to cultivate that culture with the players that you have in the locker room and the coaches leading the charge. So, you build that through the off season, you build that through spring, you get into training camp, and you really build your identity that way.
You've kept the same coaches around Anthony.
Mm-hmm.
Do you feel like the message needs to change from those coaches, or what do you feel like needs to happen there?
I think this, with a young quarterback, I think continuity is important at that position with a young guy. Obviously playing, 15 games in the NFL, hearing that, those same voices. I got a lot of, respect and confidence in Cam and Jim Bob and the work that they do. They're really good coaches. So to have another year with those voices in his ear, I think will be beneficial.
A couple more for Anthony, like knowing it's an open competition, going into year 3.
I think every year is like that in the NFL. You know what I mean? You got to show up and play. You know what I mean? Every year it's pressure situations, and you got to show up week in and week out and put on your best performance.
2 years ago, you guys had a lot of success in the run game, having Zach Moss back there and being able to have somebody to take some of the pressure off Taylor's plate. That wasn't as much of an emphasis this past year. Is that something that going into this offseason you guys would like to find a way to replicate, or is what?
Yeah, I think obviously Jonathan Taylor, as we know, is a really good player. He's our bell cow, and to add pieces behind that, obviously we'll look into that. To add some guys there, and then we'll go from there. But I thought he ran it well this year. I think we finished 8th in rushing this year, but to add some more pieces behind him will be big.
So would you like to have like a Joker type pass catching back?
What's a joker?
It's like Sean Baker uses Trubisky and those guys just kind of like pass catching.
Okay, joker. All right, this is a new one. All right, I like it. I think there's benefits to that for sure. I think, you got, maybe your short yardage back, but you also get your pass catching back out of the backfield. And obviously, when you look through that, whether it's free agency or the draft, you got to make sure, like with any guy that you bring in, you got to have a plan on how you want to use them.
Coach, last one.
when he was there, all fans love to see him. What do you appreciate about him, and how does that influence your career?
You know what? I got a ton of respect for him. I've had, multiple conversations over the past couple of years with Tony. The work that he's done, the human that he is, the humility that he has, you can just see it. I saw a few things, this morning, just looking at some of the clips from last night, just how much the players loved him. And they just wanted to play hard for him. So a ton of respect for him, and, got a really good relationship with Tony.
All right, thanks, guys.
All right, good to be back. As always, Indy, Jeff Foster, the NIC, the NFL, the event we put on here in Indy, I don't think anybody can do it better. Organized, it's a great place, downtown Indy. They do a great job every year, great place to put on the combine. So thankful for Jeff and all the work him and his staff do. I think it goes underappreciated, the work and time it takes them to organize all of this. It's impressive work. All right, fire away.
Chris, now there's been a little bit of time since the season. Have you and Ryan Kelly had a chance to meet and figure out what you guys might go?
We're going to meet again next week. Ryan and I will talk. I'm visiting with his agent again this week, and then we'll make a decision right after the season. The day we visited for a little bit, we didn't visit about his future, and then I was sick as a dog, and I said, hey, let's visit here. And so we'll visit next week. Not really. I mean, personal issues dealing with. He's dealing with it. We're supporting Braden. Think the world has been a great player for us. We'll see going forward. What I will tell you is he's doing really well, and he wants to play football. Okay, we'll work through the rest of it. I won't get into. Here's what I will say about Bernie. The progress Bernie has made from year one to now has been, it's been pretty incredible. And who he is. I'm not going to get into contracts and talks. I think he's a really good player. He's a good Colt. But happy for him and the progress he's made, and glad he's on our team.
Chris, how much thought have you given the quarterback landscape as we get a little closer to free agency? You said you want to add to that. But you're thinking involved in all this?
No, it's the same. I mean, look, it's got to be the right guy to create real competition, but we want to create real competition. I think it's good for the team. I think it's good for Anthony. I mean, when we drafted Anthony high knowing it was going to take some time, all right? And we knew there's going to be some hiccups along the way. And it's I know we all want a finished product right now. I do. You do. Fans do. We all do. But I think as he continues to progress in his young career, us adding competition, I think will help up everybody's game.
And then to that thought, in terms of acquiring that quarterback, is everything a potential avenue, whether it be draft ratings?
It's all on, yes, everything's on the table. It'll be open. That's correct. And of course, it's got to be somebody that can really challenge from a production standpoint too.
Coach Anthony talked about the cornerstones of the roster, defensive line, offensive line. There are some questions on the offensive line. Will Fries,
Yep.
where is his rehab, and how concerned are you that there's three spots that might be in front?
Well, I think you know me well enough to know that it's a position that we don't ever want to go light on. Let's get into Will. From a 7th round pick to everybody, kind of beating him up a little bit as he kind of grew to coming into a really good football player has been really cool and fun to watch. Just the work he put in. I'll never forget after his first year, I probably shouldn't say this, but I sent him to a friend of mine in Chicago, and him and Danny Penner worked, and it was I think some confidence instilled in him, some strength, and then to watch him progress. And then unfortunate this year, with the injury, but the rehab has been, he's worked like anything you would expect from Will. Like never a missed day, doing everything in his power. He's progressing nicely. So I couldn't be more happy for him. Hopefully we can get something done. If not, we'll get into free agency and then we'll see what the market is. I'm visiting with his guys here later this week. We visited with Will a bunch. It's an area, look, we know that, I think you know my feelings. Like, you have to be good up front. It's hard when you can't block people. And over the length of a season, it shows, like when you have weakness, it shows up. That's kind of why we drafted the two kids last year who we think have bright futures. We think Bordellini has a bright future, and he showed even some flashes at guard. And then we think Gonzalez has a really bright future. They did some really good things. And look, at the end of the season, we did some good things in the, offensively, running the football. But they're young players. So it's a position that we have to make sure we've got 5, really 6, 7, and 8 guys that can play.
It's obviously a really important offseason for Anthony, and I know you guys are looking for a lot of growth. Do you have a sense of kind of start he's off to so far, and how would you like that offseason to look?
So he trains down in Florida. We know his trainer well. His trainer's excellent. He is. He's excellent. And he's got multiple guys. Last offseason, Anthony spent a lot of time rehabbing. All right, so now he can focus on just training and developing and getting better fundamentally, which will be fun to watch. I talk to Tom pretty regularly, who trains him, and so we get pretty good updates on him. And rules are what the rules are. They can't do as much in our building as they can outside of the building. So it'll be interesting to see, when he gets back in. But I think we're going to see a good version, things that he'll continue to need to work on when he's with us. But I have a lot of faith in the guys he's training with.
Chris, the hires on the defensive staff have a pretty obvious focus towards the secondary. Was that a planned coincidence with those 3 hires, or did it just work out that way?
It just worked out that way. I mean, Lou's a really good coach. I mean, it's amazing in this league how you can go from being one of the top head coaching candidates to not being. Lou's an outstanding coach, and then to be able to add the 2 other, with Chris Hewitt, like I felt we got a little lucky. Next thing I know, he's on the market, and we were able to get him to come in. So we feel fortunate about all the coaches that Lou was able to, we gave Lou the freedom. We said, hey, look, who do you want on staff? And he interviewed and kept some of our guys. And he said, here's some targets that I wanted to get. So we feel very fortunate to get the ones that we have.
When you looked at Layatu's season last year, what sort of gives you some encouragement that he can kind of take that next step?
He did a lot of good things. I think with any rookie, I mean, there's a learning curve. There is. Like, it doesn't matter. There's a learning curve. He did a lot of great things. I think the number one thing, for any O lineman or D lineman, the physicality down after down that they have to face, they have to get. It's an adjustment. It is, and in college football, much different because they're going so fast, and so it's just a different mentality when you get in our league and it's down after down, the physical, and then you're playing against tackles that are really good, who understand how you want to rush them, know where their weaknesses are, and so you've got to develop a plan. So I think I thought you could see it as the year went on. Were the sacks coming at the end? No, but the pressures were, and I think you'll see him finish more as we go forward here. DeForest had I know Latu was getting a little frustrated. And I remember DeForest kind of telling him, say, look, man, it took me 2 years to really develop to where I really understood how to rush. I think it'll come on quicker than that, but everybody's developmental timetable is different.
Chris, is there a rule of thumb as far as a timeline in developing a young quarterback? Is that strictly a case-by-case basis? You can't put a running clock on it?
I think it's a case-by-case basis. I mean, if you look at the success of the kids last year that came in the league, they'd all played a lot of football. Both of them had played a lot of football. I mean, I do think it's a case-by-case. But, I mean, I think you're seeing young guys come in and have success, and I think a lot of it is because of what they're doing, the snaps they're getting in college, how many snaps they're getting.
Chris, the market for free agent running backs has been somewhat depressed in the last couple of years because of the success of Derrick Henry and Saquon and seeing their generational talents. But do you think it's going to have any impact on the free agent running back market this year and the next couple of years?
I think it depends who the free agent running back is. I mean, Jonathan Taylor had a pretty good season for us. I think it just depends on who that guy is. Are they a guy that can really change the landscape of your team? I mean, and the guys that hit the market last year were really good players. And I think the market paid them accordingly. I think it depends. That's a case by case who the player is and, you know, how many downs he playing on. Is the defense really got to focus on him? You know, do they really have to game plan to stop him? Is that a guy that on Monday and Tuesday, that they're saying, okay, we have to stop this guy, you know, to have a chance to stop their offense? There's a difference.
What you see, does this class have anyone that rises to that level?
I'm not going to say they don't, but those two guys are elite. They're elite players.
What can you learn from a player at the combine which you couldn't at any other event?
That's good. That's a good question. Here's what, and been doing this a long time, coming to this event for a long time. Here's what, and I think they've done a better job of, like 10 years ago, they were crunched into a 3 or 4 day period where interviews, medical, workouts, I mean, it was exhausting on them. So I think between the NFL, the PA's involvement, and players' feedback, you know, they've kind of stretched it out to where they're getting enough rest. So I'll tell you a great story. Johnny Knox, I'll never forget. Here's this young kid from Abilene Christian he's a Division II player. Man, everything he did, interview, workout, I mean, he lit it up. It was not too big for him. He did everything, and all of a sudden, you know, we get him in the 5th round. There's Johnny Niles, take Johnny Knox. In the 5th round, he ends up becoming a great player. Unfortunately, got hurt at one point. Guys that come here and perform, and it's not too big for them, there's a confidence level that you can see that they're going to do it at our level too. Now, look, there's no pads on. There's no football involved for the most, there's no contact. So it's different. But I just think guys that show up that are confident in who they are, what they can do, what their talent level is, and they usually end up performing good in our league. So there's a lot you can find out, just how they handle the stress of the week. Like, it's a long week on them. There's more rest time for them, which is good, but the stress of the week, I mean, interview after interview. I mean, it's like last night we had interviews up till like 11, and there was a kid that got his medical ran late, and so we didn't get to start till 11 with him. But him walking in, for good attitude, not griping about, man, they had me in medical, it's been a long day. No, he sat there for 20, 25 minutes with us and answered every question, was alert, attentive. That's not always the case. So you can find out a lot just by your interactions and watching them all week.
A couple more. How do you feel about VR training quarterback? Is that something that Anthony looks forward to get more?
No, that's interesting because we're very aware of the products out there, and I think every player's different. Like, all right, let's take this. Like Andrew. When we had Andrew, I remember bringing up the Strive, like they were the big group then, Striver, and it made Andrew dizzy. He didn't like it. All right, so I think every player's different. But I do say this, with the video age of what we're at today, you're going to see a lot more players that are into it. I think players are more, like they are far more educated in the game of football just because of Madden. Like, when you look at how advanced like when I was that age, there's no way. Like, all we did was, like, we didn't have that. We had Tecmo Bowl, which, I mean, you weren't learning defenses and offensive scheme. And, like, they're doing this from a young age. So you're getting some advanced guys at least knowing what to do. Now, recreating it from a virtual reality, look here, there's no doubt it has value, but you are not getting hit. Like, there's a difference when there's the threat of pain. There just is. Like, the game, it's just different. Like, it's a physical game, so it's different. It does help, yes, but like with anything, like, you got to line up and go play and with pads on.
Last one here.
When you look at Lou's defense, is there any young players or position groups that really stand out to you that you guys are excited excited about potential growth that they could take this year?
Man, look, I think Lou's very multiple, and I think he's proven that with what he's done. I think we do got some good young, front players. It'd be good to get Sampson. Sampson's been doing a great work in terms of, rehab and coming back. So it'll be fun to watch how he uses Latu. If you're able to move Latu around and be creative with him, so that'll be fun to watch.
What do you think are some of the stronger parts of this draft class?
I think every draft is always there's always players, but if I think D-line's really good. I think tight end is really good. I think there's some the O-line. I would tell you, I don't mid-round stuff is really deep. Those positions for sure. I think there's some good secondary players. So I think there's some positions that really do have some good depth in here.